in the car somewhere and go riding off with somebody, not knowing where we're going. But no one asked Jesus, where are we going? Why are we going? They just knew he was taking them somewhere. And immediately this man met them. Now, it goes back to ask the question, if Jesus walked in the door right now, how would he be accepted? Would we fall on our feet and worship him? Would we know who he is immediately? Or in today's world, would you look at him and wonder, is this person supposed to be here? What if he came in with tattoos all over his arm, long hair, unshaved, ragged clothes? Would we recognize him? Would we welcome him in immediately? You have to ask us these questions because in his day, the picture shows him having a little beard and long hair. But they didn't have razors and barbers, so you have to ask your question, what would he look like when he got here? In verse 2 and 3, it says he got out of the boat, and the man of unclean spirit met him. So the man knew who he was. But was it the man or was it the demons that knew who he was? Well, we find out later it was the demons that was controlling the man. In verse 4 it says, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been torn apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces, no one was strong enough to subdue him. This had to be a pretty stout fellow now to break shackles and chains, and no one could subdue him. So he had to be a big guy. So let's get the picture right. Jesus came across the sea in a boat. He gets out, and immediately this man runs to him who's been shackled in chains, and he runs up to Jesus. Well, anytime anybody comes running toward me, I run the other way. I don't run to them and ask them, what is it that you want? It goes on to say that in verse 5, constantly, night and day, he was screaming among the tombs and in the mountains, gashing himself with stones. This man's tormented. He's got these demons in him, and no one could free the demons from him, so he had been in the tombs. Now, the tombs is a cemetery. So imagine this. The man is he's got these demons in him. He's living in the tombs where the dead is. No one could cure him. He's been chained, he's been bound, and he tears these off as though they're strings and feathers. And he's gashing himself. Now, I've been told by psychiatrists that some people will cut themselves when they feel that something's in them and they can't get it out. Or they feel like they are punished, and this is a way to accept their punishment is to cut themselves. I've seen it in movies, and it was proving that the person could withstand the pain and the torture of what they're fixing to go through. It was proof of how they were stronger than what's being put upon them. Me, I get cut enough. I don't want to get cut anymore. But this man was taking stones and he was beating himself. He was punishing himself for having the demons in him because I guess he felt like it was being punishment because having the demons, he had done something wrong. He was possessed. He was trying to get the demons out, but they wouldn't come out. So he was looking for answers. He couldn't find any. So we go to verse 6. He's seeing the demons, and this man is seeing Jesus. It says, seeing Jesus from a distance, the man ran up, bowed down before him, and shouting with a loud voice, he said, what business do we have with each other? Jesus, Son of the Most High God, I implore you, by God, do not torment me. So it's the demons that is doing the talking, not the man. The man is possessed by demons. They've got control of him and his body. They're telling him what to do. The demons see Jesus from a distance. They know who he is. Nobody has to introduce the demons to Jesus, and they already tell him that you are the Son of the Most High God. They know who he is. They know his power. And they go running to him and ask him, why are you here? Are you here to torment me or to punish me? They had it made. They had possession of this man's body. They were making him do things that is not natural to us, wasn't natural then. And they had control. They didn't want to give up. You might say they were in their heaven. So why would they want to give up? So they were thinking that Jesus was there to punish them, to make them give up something that they wanted. In verse 8 it says, for he had been saying to him, come out of the man, you unclean spirit. In 9 it says, and he asked them, what is your name? And he said, my name is Legion, for we are many. Many? How many? Well, we don't know. Because it doesn't say here how many they are. But Legion means many. So if there was more than one, it's one too many. If there was one. So the man is tortured. He's been chained. He's been possibly gagged. He's living in the tombs. He's probably got ragged clothes, underfed. He's bleeding from where he's gashing himself with rocks. He's probably got broken bones. He's deformed. But he runs to Jesus, and the demons are making him do this. And the demons are asking Jesus, pleading with Jesus, don't torment me. Don't make my life any worse than what it is because I've got it made here. Well, sometimes don't we do that? Don't we get to a position where, hey, we've got it made. Don't put any more pressure on me. Don't change anything because I've got it made. Why would I want to change if everything is going along fine? If the bills are paid, I've got money, I can got time off, I got all this freedom, I can do what I want, I'm used to everything. Why would I want to change? Well, I believe that God puts obstacles in our place to teach us, to prepare us for something great. We've all experienced that. So what was the man being prepared for? Have you ever thought of that? After the man has been tortured all this time, the demons have been in charge, they're leading his body, he's living in the tombs. You just can't really get past it sometimes because you have to wonder, what did the man do to deserve this? What did the man do that caused the demons to go in him? Did he sin? Did he go do something wrong? Is God punishing him for something that the man done? Or did the demons just need a place to go? So we go on. Verse 10, and he began to implore him earnestly not to send them out into the country. So why would he not want to go out? They would have the freedom to go and worship, and they were worshiping the devil. The demons asked and begged Jesus not to send them out into the country, because then they would just probably wander around until they found somebody else. They may have entered someone like us. We're Christians. We worship God. We know who God is. We know who Jesus is. But if a demon entered us, could we enter this holy ground right here, this house? Possibly. Can the demons come in here? Sure they can. I've been in churches before where I think the demons were actually there because Jesus wouldn't want people to act the way they did. Jesus wouldn't want people to argue and disagree over minor issues. So I believe that demons were there. Maybe in the people, I don't know. There was once a man asked me, he was a member of our church that me and my wife was attending, and he stopped attending the church. He went to another church. I asked him, why did you leave? What is at the other church that took you there? What is our church missing, the reason you went to that church? And he said, well, when I walked in the door, I found the presence of the Lord. I said, well, whatever brought you there is misleading, because God's not here in this house. He's not in the plaster and the wood and the electricity. He's not, when you flip the switch on, God doesn't light up. We bring God to this place. We could meet out there under that tree. We could be at the gazebo right now, and we could be worshiping God, and God would be there. So God wasn't here. We didn't come here to get him. We brought him here. He's in our heart. So this man told me, he said, I go to that church because I feel the Spirit of the Lord. Well, first off, you're supposed to bring him there. And if you got there and he was there, somebody brought him there. So you didn't bring him to the church where I was. Well, later on I found out that there were others there that, let's just say they agreed with him, but they came to that church and they were a member there because they had that control. They had the authority to make decisions, and they wanted to worship God the way they wanted to worship God. And whenever a decision came up, they would try to convince us to vote the way they wanted to vote. And instead of asking, how does God want it to go? They done it the way they felt like it should happen. I know I'm chasing rabbits. I was told not to, or I was asked not to. But it gets the point across that sometimes, even in places where you think God is there, demons can be there too, because they will lead us astray. They will convince us to do things that later on we will say, why did we do that? I wonder what made us make that decision. Well, I think sometimes we're out looking for stuff, and we're looking in the wrong places, and we get led astray easily. In verse 13 it says, Jesus gave them permission to come out. The unclean spirits entered the swine, the pigs. The herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea, about 2,000 of them, and they were drowned in the sea. So Jesus freed the demons from the man and sent them to the pigs, to the swine. Now, once they entered the swine, the pigs had been living free, and they knew what it was like, and they could tell there was a difference. They knew, they could feel it when the demons entered them, and they knew it wasn't right. And instead of just living with it, they would rather die. So the Bible says they ran to the sea and they all drowned. So what happened to the demons? Did the demons die? Did the demons die with the pigs? Were they freed? Now they remember the demons had asked for them, Jesus, not to be sent out to the countryside, for them to roam. They wanted a home to be in. They wanted to be somewhere. They wanted to control something. They had to be in control. Sometimes don't we want to be in control? Should we be in control? Should we be the ones that make the decision sometimes? I don't think so. Sometimes I think when it's time for making a decision, we should stop and think about it and then have a little prayer. Because maybe it's not for us to decide, but yet it's for God to decide. Some people might say that's waiting for the opportunity to pass. And I have been guilty of that. I have been guilty of saying, I'm going to wait until I feel God tell me directly. Well, sometimes God sends me messages, but I don't hear it because it's coming from ways that I don't think is from God. It's maybe from another person that God sent to me, but I didn't hear it because I was looking for that deep voice in the sky to come down. Sometimes you don't hear that loud voice, that deep thunder voice from this God. That it's from someone else. It might be a whisper. You may be laying in the bed asleep, like Brother Darrell has said in the past that he was in the bed asleep at 4 o'clock in the morning, and a voice come to him and said he needed to get up and practice his sermon. He couldn't sleep. I've experienced the same thing. But if we let demons, and I believe that demons are among us every day, we have to not allow the demons to take control of us and let us decide We need to ask for leadership and guidance from God. And then we have to pray and ask for, is this the decision that you want me to make? How you want me to make this decision? Sometimes he will answer your prayer in a way that you weren't anticipating, because we want things to turn out the way we want it to. We have a plan. Our plan and his plan is not the same plan. If it was, there would be a different outcome, and we would probably not like the outcome. So in verse 14, it says, the herdsman ran away and reported it into the city and into the country, and the people came to see what was that had happened. So the guys that were in charge of the pigs, that were herding the pigs, they seen what happened. They probably saw the spirits leave this man, entered into the swine, and the swine couldn't live with themselves, so they run and jumped into the ocean. Now the swine at the time was money making. That was how they made a living. So they just saw all their money run and jump off in the ocean. So what did they tell the people when they went to tell them? Did they tell them that they saw the demons? Did they see Jesus perform a miracle? Or did they just go tell them, hey, man, all your pigs just ran and jumped in the water? Don't know why, but they did. I just wonder what they told them. Now in verse 15, it says, they, the people that had the pigs, came to Jesus and observed the man who had been demon-possessed, sitting down, clothed and in his right mind, the very man who had had the legion, and they became frightened. What did they get frightened of? The man that couldn't be chained and bound? The man that had the demons? Were they afraid because that the demons might be free and the demons might come to them? Were they afraid of Jesus? I like to believe they're afraid of Jesus, because they knew this man. They had probably heard of this man who lived in the tombs. They knew what he was like. They knew he couldn't be controlled, that the demons were in control. And now all of a sudden they walk up here, or ran, however they got there. They see this man that had been living in the cemetery, that had been gashing himself, that had been screaming out in pain, and now he's sitting here with Jesus, and they became frightened. I would like to think they were frightened of Jesus, afraid of the miracles that he might be performing, because they may not have been living correctly. So if you think about it, there was a lot of things here that they could be frightened of. So if you think about it a while, it says when they observed the man who had been demon-possessed, sitting down, he was clothed. Where did he get the clothes from? I always wondered that. Where did the clothes come from? Did someone give it to him? It says it was in his right mind. So he was talking. He was making sense. From before, he was screaming and hollering because he was in pain and agony. So now he's talking and he's in his right mind. I was hoping and I'm praying that he was worshiping God with Jesus. I mean, he's got the band sitting there with him. I'm hoping they're talking about God and what miracles he had performed and where he could go with that. It says those who had seen it described to them how it happened to the demon-possessed man and all the swine. And in 17, it says they began to implore him to leave their region. So they're asking Jesus to leave. Now, who's in their right mind? Who has the demons? Here's Jesus sitting there talking to the man who had been possessed, and they're asking the man to leave. If Jesus walked in the door right now, would we ask him to leave? If he'd done something we didn't like, would we ask him to please Don't make my life any more miserable. Remember, I'm happy. The bills are paid. I've got time off. I can spend time with the family. But everything is good. I don't want to be challenged. I want to be left alone. So I'm going to ask Jesus to leave. And don't come bother me anymore. I wonder where they're going. You have to ask where the demons are, because the demons might be in these people because they're asking Jesus to leave. You have to wonder who's right and who's wrong. He said he was getting into the boat, and the man asked the demon man, who had been demon-possessed, was asking Jesus if he might accompany him. If Jesus came here today and he freed us from all of our sins, don't we want to go be with him? Don't we want to share the ride with him? Jesus is getting back in the boat. He's fixed to make that trip back across the sea, go back to what he was doing. He made that trip all the way across the sea to save one man that was demon-possessed. Now he's getting back in the boat, and the guy that he freed is asking, can I go with you? Well, we've all had the little children that when we get ready to go to work or somewhere, and our children want to go with us. Please let me go with you. I won't be a problem. I won't bother you. And we tell them, no, you have to stay here. And it breaks our heart because we have to leave our little ones. The Bible goes on to say that Jesus told him, no, don't come with me. It's not that I don't want you. It says, go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done for you and how he had mercy on you. Jesus gave all the credit to God. He didn't take any. Jesus didn't stand up and say, I did it. I get it. I got it. Took care of it. Y'all don't worry about it. I handled it. Nope, he gave it to God. How many times when we help with a situation, we turn it over to God and say, God did that. I didn't. I didn't help one bit. I didn't hold a 2x4 up by myself. I didn't drive a nail. I didn't hold someone's hand as their parents was dying or their loved one was dying. I didn't do it. God did it. How many times do we not give God credit for what he's done? I'm sorry, I do. I think when I get up here in front of you and I'm giving you this, I can tell you now that I didn't do it. God placed this message on my heart years ago. And I practiced it for years. And then the other day, Darrell asked me, will you do my services for Sunday? Oh, wow. Whew. Yeah, I will. And I thought about all this that I had practiced. I had laid in bed at night a long time, many times, going over this. And then during the week, certain things, as I'm watching TV, as I'm listening to the news, other messages came in. And I'm thinking, Lord, is that what you want me to tell these people? Or is it something else? Show me what you want me to tell them. Well, it kept coming back to this. So, he did this. I didn't. He put the words together for this person to write down and to be here for centuries for us to read and learn and listen to today. He put it all together. And I can testify, and y'all know I wasn't here 6 months ago. I had a job where I was making money, house was paid for, had a bass boat, rocking and rolling, and then he pulls the rug out from under me. He said, nope, you're in the wrong place. You're not challenged. It's time for you to move on and move up. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We got our wires crossed. I had a good job. Pretty much had it made. Lost the job. Started looking for a job, and where I was from, my talents weren't needed. I had to go somewhere else. So I start calling friends. They start telling me about places that need somebody. So, okay, here we go. Our children are grown up, moved all over the country, grandchildren everywhere. So I told my wife, I said, we could go just about anywhere we want to. Pick a place. Well, we have a grandson that lives, new grandson. So let's move up there. I said, okay. So I make a few phone calls. I find a job. It didn't take but about 2 weeks to figure out that is not the place for me. But the story goes that when we were moving up here, we had our camper. I'm finding a job, and she's looking for camper spots. And we go and visit camper spots. A couple of places we looked at are like, whoa, no, we don't want to live there. I'm kind of worried about even getting out of here in my truck, much less staying here in a camper and living. So I get the first job, and I'm at my job, and I'm working, and I'm driving back and forth, and she comes up in her truck, and she calls me. Found the place. I said, okay, when do we look at it? Oh, we already got the lot reserved, done paid the bill, we're ready to go. I'm thinking, wow, this place will really be great, because if you satisfy her, you're doing a lot. So I never even seen the place. I go home that Saturday, I get the camper, and we bring it back up here, and that's when I meet Miss Betty for the first time. And what's the first thing she says? Well, here's your spot, and the church is at the top of the hill. I'm thinking, wow, boy, this is a great place. So we get all set up. But my mother was a member of Pine Lake. So we go there a time or two. Now, it's a nice church, okay? If you like easy chairs, you like fancy air conditioning, big screen TV with everything on it, that's the place to go. I knew the pastor, so we go. We didn't feel at home. God may have been there. I'm sure he was, because a lot of good things take place there. They help a lot of people. But it wasn't for us. So then we start talking. Well, where's the next thing? She said, well, let's go try the one on top of the hill, the one Miss Betty told us about. Okay. So we get here. Well, I'm sorry, folks. I fell in love with this place. I like it here. I like y'all. Poor Miss Betty, she stays busy. She hears all our complaints, and every time something goes wrong, who's the first phone call we make? But then I get to friends with Daryl and Lisa, and then they pop the question on us to do this. Well, I've been preparing for this, and this is what he gave me. And this is all led up to this one giant question for the day. After God has moved in us, in our hearts, in our lives, he pulls the rug out from under us, and he sends us somewhere we don't hardly know anybody. We don't know where nothing is. It's basically starting over, and you ask God, why did you put me here? Why did you have me do this? Just like the man who was demon-possessed. After the demons were released, wouldn't you want the man to be with Jesus, to go and serve God? No. Jesus said, no, you misunderstand. I freed the demons from you. Now I want you to go tell everybody. I want you to tell what God has done for you. Not what I've done, not what Jesus has done, but what God has done for you. Because God's in charge. Jesus is his son, his right-hand man. So you've got to understand the process of how they do it. And when you understand their process, it opens our eyes. That leads to something else that has been brought to my attention. When we were growing up, our parents didn't teach us everything in one day. Hey, it took 12 years to go to school for most people, 14 for me. Okay, I'm special, I'll admit it. Some grades are so good you have to repeat them twice, okay? So, you didn't learn it in a day. You can't learn everything in the Bible in a day. So when a person accepts Christ, when the demons are removed, and he's freed, and he's ready to go, we can't always go with Jesus. Sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zone. We have to get out of our little rut where everything is comfortable. We can see that the light at the end of the tunnel, and we think we pretty well got it made. Well, we need to get out. And whenever you won't take that challenge, he will do you like he done me. He will say, today's the day. I'm pulling the rug out from under you, so to speak, and I'm going to send you somewhere. I'm going to give you a job. We have to be prepared. How do we be prepared? Well, we have to ask God what it is He wants us to do. Well, that's a big question sometimes in life, because He wants us to do things that we don't always feel comfortable doing. So He told this man to go back to where you're from. Go home to your people and report to them what great things the Lord has done. So did he do it? Yes, he did. He went away. He began to proclaim in Decapolis what great things Jesus done for him. And everyone was amazed. So why were they amazed? Because the demons had been removed from this guy, that he was living in the tombs. Now he's free to go and tell others what God and Jesus has done for him. And Jesus gave God all the credit. He didn't take none of the credit. He said, go and tell what God has done for you. When he went to tell the people, it says they were amazed. Well, if we knew anybody that was, let's use an alcoholic, drug possessed, whatever, and they dry up, they clean up. What's the first thing we always say? And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. Oh, it won't be long. He'll go back. You know, you take a pig out of the mud puddle, you wash them all up, clean them up, put perfume on them, put a little ribbon in their hair, and turn them loose, and they go back to the mud puddle. Well, sometimes drug addicts and alcoholics do, but sometimes they don't. And when they don't, then you have to think and you have to say to yourself that God's moving in their life, because God's got a hope to them. He's doing something. We may not know what it is. We may not see it. We may not ever see it. But what type of impression is that person making on someone else? Someone that they had been drunk with or drug possessed, and they may lead someone else. I know a lot of examples of people who have been in drug rehabilitation centers, and once they cleaned up, got their act straight, and started going and ministering to others, and their friends cleaned up. And after a while, there's a group of them. Aren't we the same way? Aren't we just as guilty? Weren't we all unchristian-like, and then we accepted Christ, and we became Christians, and we cleaned our act up? We're working on cleaning our act up, at least. I hope we are. So weren't we the same way? So now, our job, and it's a challenge, to go out and tell somebody else, to lead somebody else to God. Tell them what God has done in our life. I can tell you what He's done in mine. He took me out of my comfort zone. He moved me 100 and something miles. I forget now. I think it's 102 miles from our camper to the front door of our house in Macomb. He brought me up here. The first place I worked, I realized in a couple of weeks that's not where I want to be. So I started asking questions, praying. My wife and I prayed, and now He's put me somewhere, and I'm beginning to learn their processes. And now I'm learning who in my work, where I work, who are Christians. So now we're beginning to get together about once a day. We don't make a big production out of it. We get together and we have a few words. Sometimes we have a prayer. There are a few there that kind of look at us funny, like, what are y'all doing? Well, hopefully they will get the word, and we can share the word with them, and maybe one day that person who doesn't know Christ will accept Him as his Lord and Savior. So now it's a long trip from 102 miles from my front door to here, to where I'm working, and I'm thinking, God, this is what you want me to be? This is where you want me? It's a totally different world from where I was to where I am now, and that is what He wanted. I really believe in my heart that is what He wanted me to do. Where I was at was a good, easy job. made good money. Now, I'm not so good at it. I'm having to learn more things I didn't know. But he's put me there, I think, not to just to perform a job, but he put me here. He brought me to this. I hope I haven't been too boring to anyone today. But if you think about what the story really means, one part of it was that Jesus traveled all that distance to save one person. Wouldn't you want him to travel that distance to save us, one of us? If one of us was somewhere, wouldn't you want Jesus to come to save you? Oh, I'd love it if he walked in the door right now. The other part of this story is, once you're saved, you're not supposed to sit in there and just say, hey, I'm a Christian. I went to church Sunday. I'm ready. No, our job just starts. Our job now is to go out and tell others, to introduce them to God and to Jesus, and to say, you're not going to survive the fire if you don't go here. And they're going to argue with you. They're going to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about. There is no heaven. There is no hell. All you've got is what's here right now. Well, that's when you just have to smile and say, okay. Jesus didn't save all of them. You remember the story of the rich man? He asked Jesus. In Jesus' time, he asked Jesus to his face, how much will it cost me to get into heaven? Well, you can't buy a ticket. Okay? There's not enough of money. There's not enough of gold or silver to buy a ticket to heaven. The way to heaven is accept Christ, accept Jesus as your Savior, and you know that God is there waiting on us. And He's watching us. He's taking care of us. The taking care part, we don't believe He's always helpful, but He is. Because as a child growing up, in school you're giving information, you learn something, and at the end of the week you take a test to see if you know what you learned. Are you using it? Well, when I was growing up, I thought that's a waste of time. I know what 1 and 1 is. 1 and 1 is 3. It's real simple. A man and a woman, that's one apiece. Third comes a child. Sometimes it comes in 4s. We had twins the first time, so it comes in 4s instead of 3. But you can't learn it all in a day, so we have to read the Bible. We have to study the Bible, and we have to live the Word. And in that time, He will give us challenges. And when the challenge comes up, we have to accept the challenge. And it may be stopping on the side of the road to help someone. It may be standing at the door, welcoming a visitor in. It may just be simply saying at a cashier's, when a cashier's having a bad day at Walmart, and say, the rest of your day will be blessed by God if you'll accept God as your Savior. It changes the whole attitude. I've tried it before. Trust me, it works. The cashier can be on her grumpy little mood. I got 7 more hours to cash out all these people. Won't say a word. I just say, have a blessed day. The next time you're in there, the cashier says, well, you just changed my whole day. I'm glad you come by. It's good to see you again. After a while, we're old friends. So, the job and the challenge now is to go out and tell others what God has done in our world. Because without God, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have anything. So you have to thank God for everything you've got. And then when He puts the challenge on us, whether it's singing to the Lord or praying in public or whatever, you have to accept the challenge. Just like this man here, he was demon-possessed. He had nothing to live for. He lived in the tombs, and Jesus traveled all that way to free one man of the demons. And then the man says, I want to go with you. And Jesus said, nope, I'm going to send you a different way. You'll be by yourself. You'll tell others that don't know Jesus about God. You're going to do that. And he did. So, I hope this has been a worthwhile lesson. It's tough getting up here and doing this. So when Brother Darrell gets back, can we all give him a good hug? And Lisa, because They do a lot, and it takes a lot to prepare for this. This is not something you can do in 15 minutes, and I don't see how he does it every week. I know the Lord is with them right now and taking care of them. I've heard the stories of what he has been through in the last couple of years, and I think that's wonderful the way God has worked in his life and her life. So when they get back, can we just give them a hug and let them know we appreciate everything they do? That's what I've got for today.